Yeah, I'm still at it. Can you believe it? I can't give it up. I love what I do, Bill.
In the 60s, Tommy Roe was one of the most prolific and successful recording artists anywhere. In fact, when the Beatles and Stones were climbing the charts, this guy was right there with them. He had 27 songs that reached the top 30, including this one that went all the way to #1.
Never knew a girl like a little Sheila. Her name drives me insane.
When Sheila hit, he was just 20 years old with next to no experience. But suddenly, he was a star.
I was not a professional entertainer. I had a hit record, had a #1 record in the country with Sheila, but I'd never performed professionally before, so I was like learning on the job.
And the hits just kept coming. And not just in the U.S., Roe was a worldwide hit. In 1963, he was sent to tour England, and you won't believe who opened for him.
And there was a featured act called The Beatles. And they were way down at the bottom of the program, you know. That was really an incredible thing. I used to joke with John. I said, you know, John, it's because of our tour you guys are where you are, you know. He said, oh, now wait a minute.
Tommy saw how the crowds went wild for the Beatles. He knew his record label would want to sign them, so he personally took their music straight to the boss.
And he said, well, give me the record, let me hear what you got, you know. So I pulled the album out, he put it on the turntable, dropped the needle on the first cut, I think it was Love Me Do, and played a few bars, took the needle up and said, I tell you what, kid, that's got to be the worst piece of crap I've ever heard in my life. He says, let us be the talent scouts. You are a great artist. We have you a nice room over at the Waldorf Astoria. Go over there and write us some more hits and let us find the talent.
But the Beatles appreciated Tommy's efforts and wanted to return the favor.
Brian Epstein contacted my manager and asked if I would open the show for their first American concert in Washington, D.C., February 11th, 1964.
It was the only time the Beatles ever had an opening act, and it was Tommy Roe. Roe was a major star when he made a decision that shocked everyone.
Yeah. I was about to get drafted. You know, we had the draft back then, and that was in the middle of the Vietnam thing. And so to keep from getting drafted, and I would lose 2 years of my career, I decided to join the Army Reserve. And so right after the concert in Washington, D.C. with the Beatles, that spring after that in '64, I went into boot camp.
While he was in the reserves, the U.S. was into the British invasion. It could have been the end of Tommy's career. He knew he needed a hit to keep it going, and like his others, he'd have to write it himself.
So when I got out of the service, they took me in the studio, we recorded Sweet Pea, released it, and it became a huge hit, put me back in the charts. And I was very fortunate to be able to do that, and I don't think I could have done it without being a writer, without writing my own material.
He was up against folk songs, protest songs, psychedelic songs. Yet in 1969, this is what topped the charts.
I'm so dizzy, my head is spinning, like a whirlpool, it never ends.
Dizzy went to #1 in Canada, England, and America. In fact, it was one of the fastest rising songs in history. And USA Today named it as one of the top 100 tunes in rock. It was enough to make anybody dizzy.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I was around a lot of drugs in the 60s. You know, it was just part of the fabric of the business back then. And I never got into drugs. I wouldn't know what it feels like and really don't want to know.
I had an attitude, I thought I was tough. You'd never see me smile, man, the hood was just too rough, too rough.
Drugs didn't get him, but the pressure to keep writing hits and constant life on the road did take its toll.
The marriage thing was very difficult. I was married 3 times. My first wife, I have a daughter from my first wife, and we were kind of high school sweethearts. And my second wife, we were married for 9 years. She was from England. And my third wife, who passed away 2020, Josette, she was from France. And we were married for 42 years. So it took me 3 times to make it work.
All in all, it was a storybook career.
But it's so hard to talk to you with fellas hanging around you all the time.
And it's not over yet, because he never wants to stop.
It's just the joy of doing it. I mean, I love doing this. I love making records. I love it working in the, we're in the studio now, in Michael's studio, and it's just an environment I feel comfortable in. And it's a creative environment. It's a very positive environment.
Love you, can't you see?
Michael is Grammy-nominated producer Michael Franklin, who's known throughout the industry for helping former stars reignite the spark.
Are you talking about the first drums?
First drums.
First drums, yeah. Okay.
Solar Studio is where legends of rock come to create quality music and turn back the clock while still moving forward.
I used to think 30 was really old. I said, if I can make it to 30, that's going to be great, man. And here I am in 80 still doing it. It's pretty incredible. 81's going on the new 80. That's right. That's what I like to say. I'm keeping it positive. Yeah, I turned 81 this year, and like I said, I have a passion for what I do. It's all that I can really do well. I love working in the studio, and I love working with talented people, and Michael and Tim and all of his musicians are just the best to work with.
Jam up and jelly tight. My baby, now you're out of sight.
But he is 81 and understands that the clock is ticking, which is why he knows exactly which way to keep looking.
God, you got to look forward, man. I mean, I have great memories, and I appreciate that history. I mean, that history is why I'm here today and who I am today. And all the relationships I've had, that's helped make me who I am today. The love in those relationships and the tragedy in those relationships. So the only way you can look at life is the next day, to be positive about your next step and about where you're going. I mean, look, if I have another 10, 15 years, I'll be very fortunate. But I'm going to do as much as I can in those 10 or 15 years to the best of my ability.
Oh, I'm so dizzy, yeah. You're making me dizzy, yeah.
Yeah, man, that's such a great song. It's so much fun to play.
All right.